Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. There we go. For a second, I didn't see any names popping up, and then all of a sudden, everything started coming up in Zoom. So welcome, everybody. We'll give you everybody a second to get filed in to the virtual room here. Welcome to another edition of the exciting Virtuous Insider series. Must feel special to know that you guys are insiders. It's been kind of neat being able to do this on a weekly basis. And I know for the last couple of weeks, I haven't been able to join everybody, so I'm excited to be back, be able to take a deep dive today, right? Most of our insider sessions, we try to keep to 30 minutes, but still once a month, we'd like to take a deep dive on some of our product functionality. And today, we're gonna dive deep on receding and all things receipt related. And I know this is something that everybody's got to do, right? Everybody's got to send receipts. It's pretty basic, but how you do it, everybody's got kind of a different way. And we'll look at the receding tool in Virtuous and how that's really designed to make your life easier on a day-to-day basis when it comes to receiving. We're going to look at all sorts of things. So we've got a few housekeeping items to take care of. So we'll go ahead and do some of that first here. So first things first, we are recording today, as we do always. We will make this available in the support center afterwards, so you can go back to it if there's something that you want to go rewatch later on. To get some good audio, or at least as good as we can, we do have everybody muted for today. That's pretty standard. But please do go ahead. You can use the Zoom Q&A feature. If you have a question at any point, you can send that in. We'll try to hold those questions till we get towards the end, but that way we won't lose track of them. And as we're doing this, you're going to have two of us here. So you've got me, Scott Richards, Director of Training here at Virtuous, and we've got Stephanie Larson from our training team who is hanging out in the chat and is always way more personable than I am in the chat and keeping that lively. So if you want to be doing some chatting alongside, you can certainly do that, but we'll try to keep all the questions in Q&A again so we can just keep track. We don't want to miss any of your important questions for sure. Okay. Now, in terms of our agenda for today, we're not going to dive into too many other things. We really want to spend as much time as we can on our featured content. So we'll just have a quick recap for those of you that may have missed some of our recent insider sessions. We'll have a quick recap so that you guys can catch up on what we've had on some of the recent episodes of the Insider. Oh man, I'm getting some nice things in the chat. Thank you. And then we're going to dive deep on receipts. So we'll look at creating and managing receipt templates, how you can use receipting groups in the receipting tool. The difference between that and sending annual statements, right? It's not really annual statement time, but some of you guys might do quarterly statements. Want to make sure that you're ready for that. Also the process to just send someone a single receipt, especially in that case where someone calls and says, hey, I can't find my receipt from that gift. What gives? And then we'll take a brief look, and I know this is in the last release update. You may have seen this. We'll take a quick look at receipting through receipts on demand. What does that mean and how does that work? And we want to make sure we have plenty of time here for questions as well. So before we are all receipts all the time, I do want to toss it over to Stephanie. Stephanie has been leading the charge on some of our insider sessions as of late, which have been fantastic. But Stephanie, what are some of the things that folks might have missed in some of the recent insider episodes?
Oh, I love it, Scott. Thank you. So the last three, since we last chatted about gifts, we had a strategies and action session, and Megan and I were actually chatting about acquisition practices, and really how that translated into a new donor welcome series. So we really kind of took and tailored donors' welcome journey to their acquisition journey to match those up. And then the next week, Jason and I on our product team and our product pulse session, we talked about some of the new release features, some of the membership updates, and even how you can customize the fields on both gifts and contact pages. But then Jason took a few minutes and just kind of pulled the curtain back for really kind of like a sneak peek, just to share how the product team really takes all the suggestions that all of our folks here are giving us and really sharing how that feedback kind of turns into real live system changes. And then last week, we chatted with a Human Life International, so we did a spotlight, and Amy on their team was talking about using automation to streamline internal tasks. So really tracking recurring payments, reaching out to donors to nudge and remind them. They do a welcome back series. So we talked about that kind of specific messaging and how we can take something like our best practice template for a welcome series and turn it into a welcome back for the folks that aren't quite new. And then I shared my favorite little trick about pairing a tag and a contact note, using those two in conjunction in automation workflows to kind of manage current groups, but still be able to track historical information. So a few little tips and tricks kind of sprinkled in and throughout, but I'll add the link so you guys can hop over to see past insider sessions there. But that's just kind of some of the little highlights.
That is awesome. And I have to say, my favorite part of this is getting to hear from clients how they are using our tools. I know those of you who've watched some of our training videos and things, I mean, shoot, you probably had to hear a lot of my voice. I love hearing someone else's voice, and especially hearing how our clients are putting this into play in the real world. So certainly, if you would like to share your story on a future episode of The Insider, if you'd like to come on and do some of the talking, that would be great. And if you want to shoot us an email, you can email the training team here. Just email training@virtuous.org and let us know, hey, I'm interested. I'd love to get on there and share our story, and we'd be happy to do that. Okay. Man, now there's a Scott fan club going on. I don't know what's happening in the chat. We'll let you guys go hang out. We got receipts to talk about, which is exciting. For this, I'm not going to dive into a lot of slides. I really want to spend some time in the product and looking at how these things work, start to finish, right? Because again, receding is pretty critical. Now, I want to mention one thing in terms of terminology. When we say receipts or receding in Virtuous, okay? Because I feel like that when people talk about receipts, they tend to mean two different things. Sometimes we mean a tax receipt, right? So we're talking about, hey, here's the receipt for your gift that you're going to use when you go ahead and file your taxes to claim this as a deduction. And sometimes we mean an acknowledgement, meaning, hey, it's just a nice thank you, but it's not specifically the tax receipt that shows you the deductible amount. And sometimes we mean both of those things, right? I'm going to send you a letter that says thank you, and it's also going to have the information in there about your gift. Most of the time, right, acknowledgement and receipt are used interchangeably for one another. But the big difference, right, is an acknowledgement may not show you the tax deductible amount and things like that. A tax receipt does. Has to know not just how much you gave and when, but how much of that is tax deductible. Okay, so when we talk about receipts, that's one of the big distinctions there. But if you are tend to use the term acknowledgements, again, most of the time that means the same thing. I need to send you a letter to say thank you for your gift and share some of the information with you about your gift. Okay, that's what we mean when we're talking about receipts. So there's two different ways that you can get to the receiving page. Okay, number one, pretty straightforward, right? I go in here to sort of the settings or more tools menu, and I can go right to receiving. So it's built right into the main navigation. However, most of the time, if I'm going to be doing any receiving and sending any receipts, it's because I've just imported a whole bunch of gifts, and now I need to go send those receipts. So there is a shortcut to get there right from the gift entry screen, right from the gift and contact import tool. You can either go to the actions dropdown, and you'll see the option to receipt gifts right here. But you're going to notice that there's a little piece of paper icon. You'll see that in a few different places when we refer to receiving. And that looks just like the icon on this button right here. That'll take you right to the receiving page. All right, so we want these to really be kind of connected so you can have a nice natural flow. I'm going to go ahead and enter my gifts. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to generate receipts for those gifts and send those out. Whether they're paper or whether they're email, doesn't matter. Okay, so this is the receiving page, and it starts on the receiving groups tab. Like I said, we're going to talk about receiving groups in a little bit, but before we can get there, we need to have some receipt templates. I can't create a group. I can't create rules for how to send my receipt if I don't have a receipt in the first place. Okay, now, I happen to have a whole mess of receipt templates in here already. we'll go ahead and create another one. Okay, just so we can walk through it. So I'm going to go up here to Actions. I'm going to go ahead and create a template. Now, I should mention as a caveat here, as a user, right, for everybody who's on today, or let's all say hello to the people who might be watching this as a recording later. Hello, recording people. Thanks for joining. But for anybody who's going to watch this or watching today, you may have different permissions when it comes to Receded. Right? You might have permissions to do everything in the Receding tool. You might only have permissions to run Receding, but not create templates. You might be able to create templates, but not groups. There's many shades of permissions. And so I'm saying that because if at some point you are on the Receding tool, but you don't seem to have access to all of these options that we're going into today, if you're not an admin, maybe you need to talk to your admin for your organization to make sure that you have the correct permissions, that you have access to everything that you need. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click Create Template. And that takes me into this little wizard here. And I've got two different basic types of receipts in terms of how I send it, and then also a choice to make in terms of the structure for that receipt. Okay, so first off, am I going to create an email receipt or am I going to create a mail receipt? Do I want to create something that's going to be a PDF that I have to print and drop into the mail? That's a mail receipt. Or do I want to create an email receipt? Now, interesting distinction when it comes to email receipts. Okay, when I send an email receipt, the body of the email will be the receipt. I know that there are some systems and sometimes where you'll send an email and the receipt is attached, right, as a PDF. If I'm doing email receipting, the email itself is the receipt. Okay, and we'll look at that editor. The email editor is actually the same editor that you use for marketing emails. So if you've been using any of the Virtuous marketing tools, there shouldn't be a really steep learning curve there. It's mostly the same. Now for the mail receipts, the editor is a little different. It's very similar to what you see with our letters on demand editor, but it is a different editor that you'll see in a lot of other places. So we'll go ahead and do a mail receipt first.
Scott, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. I'm so very sorry. Can you please zoom in on your screen a little bit? You must have the giant monitor going. It's a little small for us.
A big fancy monitor. Of course I do. What are you kidding? Here, let's do this.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you very much, Scott. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
No. That's totally fine. Thank you, because I missed that in the chat. So see, that's why Stephanie's great. She's on it. But there we go. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to see. All right, I forget sometimes. I do have a high resolution monitor. Can make things a little tough if you're on a small screen. So now you can see we've got our receipt settings. So we're going to do a mail receipt. I'm going to call this today's webinar mail receipt. Totally cool. Let's even capitalize receipt, shall we? So we're not like savages here. And then for the gifts per receipt, this is the other setting that I get to choose. I can either include multiple gifts per receipt or a single gift per receipt. Multiple gifts per receipt, that would be for your annual statement or your quarterly statement. That just says, hey, when I send out this receipt, I want you to roll up all the gifts for a particular contact and be able to put them on a single receipt for that person. So if they gave 5 gifts, I want to see all 5 gifts listed there. Again, when you do your annual statements in January, that's typically what you would use. Okay, so you're using the same tool to create those statements that you do for your daily driver receipts. But your day in, day out receipts that you're going to send, they should be a single gift per receipt. You gave us $45, went to the general fund, thanks. That's going to get its own receipt, whether again it's an email or whether it's a letter. Okay, that's what we'll create here. And then for mailed receipts, you have some choices to make in terms of how you want to handle envelopes, right? Because for your envelopes, you can choose if you're going to just not worry about it. Maybe you've got your own plan. Maybe you're using window envelopes, I don't know. Or do you want to download a separate CSV so that you can use that to do a mail merge and print those labels to go on the envelopes, or do you want to download a separate PDF? And that PDF will be formatted for a standard size envelope. So that way you will print out all the receipts, and then separately you will do a run where you print out all of the addresses on the envelopes so that you can send them out. Here, I think I saw one other comment. Let's make that, oh man, that's so big. I lose my mind. Settle right in there at 150. Okay. For today, we're going to go with no envelopes. We're not going to worry about envelopes for our pretend receipt. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit next. That's going to take me into the receipt builder. And here we go. Got a big blank piece of paper. Now I can go in and build my receipt. You got a lot of tools up here in the upper left. Some of these are very similar to kind of some of the things you might see in a Microsoft Word or something like that. So you can think of it the same way. Now, for those of you that are super duper fancy and are really comfortable and slick with using HTML, well, you could go ahead and do that, because this actually is an HTML editor. Right? That's how this gets built, and it gets rendered into a PDF so we can print. And so you can actually click right up here to go to the source code view, and you could put in any of your styling. You just need to make sure that any of the styling goes into the head, right? And then you could put in the body, right? You could put in your whatever your content is going to be, especially if you've got that as an HTML document from some other source. Maybe you've created a receipt somewhere else and you want to bring it in. This gives you a quick way to be able to do that. Now you're going to have to go in and probably adjust some of your merge fields and things like that, but it certainly gives you a good starting point. Okay. Now by default, this is going to create an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It's going to have 1-inch margins all the way around. If I want to change the paper size, if I want to mess around with the margins, that's something that does require custom HTML. You need to have someone on your team, right, who can go ahead and set that up for you in the styling for the document. Now, I'm going to go ahead and build a really quick, really basic receipt, because I mean, we do only have an hour. But I'm going to click on this little image button, because the first thing I want to do up the top is I want to drop in my logo. Now, if I've got my logo somewhere accessible online, I could put in the URL, right, to link to it. Or if I just have it saved as like a JPEG or a PNG file or what have you, I've got it saved on my desktop, I could go ahead and I can add that in. Okay, totally fine. So I'm going to drag in, I got sort of a fakey generic logo here. Looks great. I'm going to save it. Boy, that is really, really big. That's a little bit too big. Probably don't want it that size. So that's okay. I don't have to get crazy in terms of resizing. I can just click right here and I can resize that bad boy and make it smaller. Okay, nice, easy editing there. You don't have to get too crazy. That looks good, but I really like it to be centered. So I'm going to go to Format. I'm going to go to Align. And I'm going to center it. There we go. Now I'm going to build a really quick basic receipt. So the first thing I like to do, I do like to add the receipt ID on there. So if a donor ever calls me, they have a question about their receipt, I can say to them, hey, do you see a little number in the top or in the top right? And then I can go ahead and I can find that same receipt. Okay, so I lost my mouse. There you go. We'll go to merge tags, and there's a whole mess of merge tags in here. We've even added more in some recent updates. All right, but I can pull in some data about the contact, even some of their giving statistics. So if you'd like to merge in their calendar year-to-date giving, things like that, you can. Here's some data for the receipt, like the ID and the date. Here's information about the gift. There's also even custom fields. Right, so you can see contact custom fields, their gift custom fields. I got a whole mess of stuff in here. So right now, I'm going to merge in receipt ID. That'll give me receipt ID there in a little %. I'll hit enter, and then I'm going to put in the receipt date. I like to be fancy, so I put in the long receipt date, so it's written out as opposed to just numbers with the slashes. Numbers with the slashes, that's just receipt date. So you can be as fancy or as casual as you want. Hit enter, and I'm going to put in a little address block for the contact. So I'm going to put in contact name. Now, you notice our spacing. I've hit enter after every line. Right? And you can see It's leaving extra space in between. And when I build an address block, I want a nice little tight block, tight spacing there. So to do that, you want to hold the Shift key when you hit enter. And that'll eliminate that spacing. And then I can just pull in the primary full address. I don't have to build the block myself. I could. I've got all the building blocks here. I could just say primary full address, and you can see that there's no gap there. So that'll give me a nice little address block at the top. Now the receipt ID, maybe I'll put that over on the right. I like that to be kind of over on its own. So I'll format that and I'll put it to the right. There we go. Now I'm back to that space in between. We'll leave a little bit more and say, hi. Now I can pull in the contact informal name or primary individual first name. Let's talk about this for just a second. Okay. Remember that giving is tied to a contact, right? Giving is a contact level sort of activity. Okay. So giving is not tied to an individual. And so that means that when I send this, I'm not sending a receipt to a person. If this is a gift from Bob and Sarah Smith, I'm not sending the receipt to Bob or to Sarah. I'm sending this receipt to Bob and Sarah Smith, right? That'll be the contact name up at the top. So if I'm going to address this, I could either choose the primary individual's first name, which means that it would say, hi, Bob. That might be weird. Right? Maybe Sarah's the one who made the gift. She's the one who sat down and wrote out the check. And now I'm sending a receipt going to her husband's name. That's kind of a bad look. But instead, I could use the contact informal name. So if it's Bob and Sarah Smith, and we're using our default rules, that would say, hi, Bob and Sarah. Thanks so much for your gift. I'm thanking both of you. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking, I see some things going on in the chat there in terms of being able to see the screen. Hopefully everybody's able to see. Okay. But we've got hi, contact informal name. And now I can put in whatever little story or thing that I want. Thanks for the, oh boy, can never type. Thanks for the generous gift. Now, I have two choices. I could either merge the gift information into my text, right? I've got all the merge fields available to be able to do that. So I could say, thanks for your gift of gift amount on gift date, of which deductible gift amount is tax deductible. There's no problem with that because this is a single gift receipt. There's no problem formatting wise. If it was a multiple gift receipt, that would be a problem, right? Because now I'm trying to merge in like 10 different gift amounts. How does that work? So for multiple gift per receipt templates, we have something called the gift table. Okay? And you'll see that in here as a merge field just by itself. Now that gift table is kind of nice. I tend to like to use that sometimes even for a single gift receipt. So we can say, thanks for the generous gift, see below for your records. Now, obviously, I'd want this to probably be a little bit warmer and fuzzier, but just for today, we'll keep it brief. And then down here, I can go to merge tags and I can say, okay, I'm gonna drop in that gift table. Now, when I drop in the gift table, the neat thing about a mailed receipt is I have some control over this gift table. Okay, so I can come in here and I can set what values I want to have included. So this tribute column, I might not want that. So I could put my cursor there. And you see this little toolbar, you get this special toolbar just for this table. And if I hover over any of these icons, it'll tell me what it'll do. This one deletes that column. That'll delete tribute. Maybe I want to add another column in here, right? Because this is the tax deductible amount. And then I want to add a column here to the left for my gift amount. So I can show, hey, here's what you gave, and here's how much of it's tax deductible. Well, again, I can drop that merge field in here just fine. Okay, and then I can go in here to my table settings. There I can set all kinds of stuff. Right? Table spacing, I can set a little padding for all these cells. And I can align this and center it on the page. There we go. Now, we put this together. I would probably have some little text at the bottom, right? The whole, we are a 501c3 and gifts are tax deductible and your EIN, right, number. But if I come up here to actions, I can go ahead and preview what this template's gonna look like, and it's gonna put in some dummy data just to dummy it up for you and show you, okay, here's what your template looks like so far. Not bad. This is what I'm going to tell all of you, okay? Don't just preview the receipt and think I'm good to go. Download the PDF. Okay, you want to download that PDF and see what this is actually going to look like when you render it as a PDF. Because I guarantee you it's going to look different once you see it with the spacing and everything else. Okay, so if you're trying to judge whether you've got it just right, you've got spacing just right, or whatever it is, go ahead and download it as a PDF and take a look at what you've got. Here, trying to open it as PDF and we'll see. Now for this one here, you can see, right, the preview spacing is like really wide. It's actually compressed a little bit once I generate it as a PDF. This one didn't change too much, which is kind of nice. Okay, sometimes it looks like it changes a whole heck of a lot. But when you're trying to judge, render it as a PDF and use that as your guide. Okay, so we'll close our preview. We feel good about that, so we're gonna go ahead and save and go back. I could save and continue editing if I'm just saving as I go. We'll save and go back. We feel good about that one. Great. Now, let's create another template real quickly. We're not gonna create the whole thing, but we also wanna look at the email template just briefly. Like I said, email templates use the same editor that we use for Virtuous Marketing, which is kind of nice. Okay, so here we can say today's webinar email template. Gosh, I have to make one typo per line, just a rule. And we're gonna go ahead and do a single gift per receipt template here too. Now here, I don't have envelope choices, but I've got to choose what the subject line is gonna be. Thank you, and who it's coming from. It's coming from me. There we go. Now that could be coming from, your organization, could come from a person, come from whoever. Totally fine. Then it'll take me into the builder, same builder that you see, again, in the marketing tool. Okay, so same rule of thumb. When you build an email, I tell people this all the time in marketing, same thing applies with a receipt. For these tabs up here, work right to left. Because the right-hand tab, the settings, that's gonna set the content area width, what your background color is going to look like, and what your default font is. Just going to set some of the basics. The rows is how you're going to set up the structure for what you've got up here. All right, so maybe I'm going to drop in a little split, put my logo and some social icons and things like that. Right, then you can go over here and start dropping in content. Okay, and I might want to drop in an image right up here. That's going to be my logo. And I'm going to drop in some social buttons up here, look kind of fancy. I'm going to put an image down in here. I'm going to drop a text box right down here. I'm going to type out my thank you for your gift sort of action. And just like with the email tool, when you're in marketing, I can browse for an image that I've already got stored on here, go to my files, and that's where I'm going to have all sorts of things. So there's my Human Fund logo. I can insert that here. Right, maybe here I'm going to put a little thank you picture. Look, I got one. Haha. And then I'll type out everything. And the same merge tags we saw for the mailed receipt, you're going to see in the list of merge tags here for the email receipt. Okay, so the same structure. There is one key difference when it comes to working on an email receipt, and that is if you want to use the gift table. The gift table is going to be found in this little dynamic content block over here. Okay, and if I drop that in, you'll see it says, hey, this is the default gift table. Now, we manipulated our gift table when we were doing the mail receipt, but here for an email receipt, I don't have the same flexibility. And that's because of the way the email has to be, or the HTML has to be built to render the email. Okay, so instead, I've got a few different choices when it comes to my gift table. If I click on this, it'll take me to the content properties, and over here you'll see I've got 5 different tables that I can choose from. Okay. So I could use the default gift table, the detailed gift table that has everything, every possibility, just all the, everything in the kitchen sink. Okay. I could go ahead and use just the gift designation table if I want to make sure I have project or tribute or premium. Now for each of these gift tables, if you're curious what fields specifically are included, we've got that included in our documentation for creating email receipts. So you can actually see without having to drop them in. But if I'm curious what's in the default gift table, I could also go right up here and say, let me go ahead and preview this just like we did with our mail receipt. And that's going to generate a quick preview. This is where I would have had all my thank you business. And there's our default table, pretty basic. Date, amount, and deductible amount. Cool beans. Okay, same thing. I can save and go back or save and continue editing. I could send a test to myself, just like with marketing, to see what it looks like. I could send it to anybody here. I do, when I send a test email, have to plug in that email address. Let's save and go back. Okay, now again, creating templates for your statements, your multiple gifts per receipt templates, they're going to be the same editor, right? The difference is I'm going to select that multiple gifts per receipt option. Okay? That's how I create my templates. Now, I've got my templates, so how do I send them to people? Well, that's where the receipting tool really comes into play, and the receipting groups. Now, I've already got a bunch of groups set up here because I wanted to be able to kind of show you what this would look like. And we can add another one here, just for kicks. But the idea with the receipting groups is, you may have multiple templates. You probably will, right? I'll have a template for folks who gave and they got a premium, and another one for folks who didn't get a premium. I might have a special receipt for one of my projects if it's a capital project or capital campaign. I might have a special receipt for gifts over a certain size, or from donors who are in my president's circle, or donors who are under management. I have a special receipt for folks who give a stock gift, another special receipt for folks who give an IRA, right? QCD gift. I end up with a whole bunch of these different types of receipts, different types of templates that I want to use. And it would be exhausting to have to manually match those with a gift when you're doing gift entry or something like that. And so the idea here is I'm actually going to build out some rules for which types of gifts should get which type of receipt, which template. And so a receipting group is just that, okay? And it's a combination, it's a link between a gift query, which we have over here, and a receipt template, which I have right here. And so that says, hey, any gift that looks like this, any gift that matches this query, it gets this receipt. And that's it. Okay? And if I want to go in here and create a new receipting group, I can. I have to give that receipting group a name, and I have to give that receipt a code. So let's say this is my major donor receipting group, and the receipt code would be major donor receipt. For my gift query, I thought I had this in here. I guess I didn't. Ambassador gifts. Okay, and then I can choose what type of receipt. Is this going to be an email receipt or a mail receipt? Oops, sneak preview, receipts on demand. We're not there yet. And then I can search for the template over here. Now, key. In terms of the templates that I'm looking for, okay, I'm only going to be able to select a single gift per receipt template for this receipting tool. Again, this is designed for your daily receipting. Okay, because we've got these business rules now that we're creating. And by the way, I can preview the receipt, make sure it's the right receipt. Look at that, it's the one we just made. We'll save that group. But this is saying, hey, any gift that matches this query, give it this template. Well, if I have multiple gifts going on a single receipt, each of those gifts might match a different query here. How does that work? I can't do that. Okay, so we'll talk about statements. That's a separate thing. But for your daily receipting, you're going to use these receipting groups. Okay, now we're going to run these queries from top to bottom. Okay, and you can see that the first group up here at the top is actually not even a query at all. It says manually set. So any of you who have done gift entry know that when you enter a gift, or even when you create an import, you can select a receipt template. That gives you the power as a human being to say, you know what, I know I've got rules set up, but I got a better plan right now. I know this donor, and they should really be getting the special major donor receipt. Great, you can set that. And that means, hey, that's a manually set value that overrides any of these other rules. But then we'll take the rest of the gifts that you're receiving and we'll run them against these queries and see what matches. Now, large gift here, this is a really basic query. If I click on it, it'll show me. It's just a query that says, hey, it's a gift that's at least $5,000. That's what we're calling large gift. That's it. Okay. So I've got that up at the top because one of those $5,000 gifts, well, that might match to one of these other queries, right? It might be someone who's asked to get mail receipts or get email receipts. And I'm trying to say, look, I don't want them to get that receipt. I want them to get the special large gift receipt. So please put that up at the top, please and thank you. I could do the same thing with my major donors and my ambassador gifts. Really important, if they are a major donor in my ambassador program, I got to recognize that first and foremost. So let's put them up at the top, even above large gift. Okay, so you're going to choose the priority order because someone's only going to get one receipt. It's not like if they gave a large gift and it had a premium and it was this, it's not like I'm going to send them 3 different receipts. They only get one. So I pick which one takes precedence. Okay. Now, the neat thing about doing this is for these that say, receiving email, receiving mail, mail receiving with premium, if we take a look at these queries, you're going to notice this is saying, hey, any gift that has a premium is known, but it's also incorporating contact tags because I'm tracking someone's receiving preference via tags. Tags are super handy. They also can be used in gift queries and not only contact queries. So it makes it super handy for tracking receiving preferences here. Now, once I've built out all of my receiving groups and I've reordered them appropriately here, then on a day-to-day basis, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to actions. I'm going to queue up receiving. So remember, in terms of process, right? I'm going to import my gifts. Once I've completed all the gift entry, I can click on that button to come right here to the receiving screen. My templates are already built. My groups are already created. I'm not doing that every day, right? That's just setup. So on a daily basis, all I do is come to this screen, go to actions, queue my receiving, meaning, hey, I want to run receipts, please. Now, when I go to queue receiving, it's going to say, sure, what receipt date do you want to put on those gifts? Remember, receipt date is how Virtuous knows a receipt was sent. If there's no date, there was never a receipt, as far as Virtuous is concerned. We're assuming you're going to receipt these today, which is logical. And then we have a time frame for the create date, start and end. Okay, when were the gifts entered? Okay. So start date and end date for create date, not gift date, because remember, gift date could be all over the map. January 7th, probably do a lot of gift entry where you're dating gifts December 31st. So if we used gift date, we would miss those. We're using create date, which is the date a gift is entered into Virtuous, the date the import is completed. And so by default, this says, give me all the gifts that were imported yesterday and today. Now, only a gift that does not have a receipt date is eligible for this process. So if you've set a receipt date in gift entry, if a date's been stored on that gift, even if it was created today, it's not going to be eligible for running receiving. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and queue my receiving run. Now, queuing receiving is not going to make things go out the door. Nothing's going to fly out just yet. Queuing receiving just basically says, hey, Virtuous, go ahead, kick off the process. And while it does this, I can go do whatever else I need to do. Maybe I have another gift I need to look up or a donor's record I need to double check. I need to make sure that I updated someone's address correctly, or someone asked me to edit something, right? Update some contact notes, whatever it is I need to do. I can go ahead and do that, okay? And then I'll get a notification to let me know when this process is done, and I can come back here and I can review the results from receiving. because you can see this column here for count. Right now we got all zeros there. So what's going to happen after receding's been queued is it's going to say, hey, here's the counts now. Here's how many gifts we get each of these receipts. Look, there's my notification. Super cool. Let's refresh. Da-da-da! Not a ton of gifts in here. It's a fake database, but I've got a couple in each of these categories. Pretty cool. No large gifts today. Can't win them all. Now, I got a little eyeball here, and I can click on that to actually view the list of, okay, which gifts are getting this receipt. There we go. Now, I do that because if I know I've entered 75 gifts and this says there's 4, whoa, what did I do? Did I put receipt dates on them? Did I mess up some of these queries? Well, what's happening, right? And also, we want you to be able to feel pretty confident here and know, okay, great, these are the receipts that have been assigned, and that looks correct. And if everything looks good, sweet. You can go up here to Actions, and you can run receding. Run receding is what makes the magic happen. If you've got mailed receipts, PDFs, you're going to see those pop up in your downloads up here. You can go download those, print them out, stuff them in envelopes. Again, if you've got a separate CSV for labels, it'll do that, export separately. If you've got a separate PDF for printing envelopes, you'll see that as a separate PDF file to download, okay? And email receipts, they just go. They go out into the universe immediately. Now, if you realize there were some errors here and you need to make some changes, that's okay too. You can come in here and you can discard this receding run. You can say, no, put the brakes on. Don't send anything yet. Don't print anything yet because I think I made a mistake somewhere. Totally fine. And there's a tab here for receding history. So you can see I reject receding a lot. But that'll show you any that have been rejected, right? And if you do have receding runs that have been completed, it'll show you how many receipts were generated. Okay, all right. So let's talk a little bit about annual statements. We talked about how to build those in the editor, but sending statements is a little bit different. Okay, I know we talk about this, I feel like every December, but bears repeating, a little refresher. When I send annual statements, I need to do that from a gift query. And I do that because that way I have complete control over which gifts are going to be included in that process. If I don't want certain gifts to be included in there, I want to make sure that I don't have IRA gifts, whatever it is, I can set up my own business rules. Now, the most basic is just the gift date, right? If I was doing an annual statement for all the gifts last year because I'm really, really behind for some reason, then I could say, give me all the gifts where the gift date is between, and then I could do January 1, 2020, December 31st, 2020. And then again, any other parameters I want to add in here in terms of gift type, right? Certain amount, anything else, I can. Okay. And then once I've run my query, from the results, I go to actions. That's where all my bulk actions are, right? And I go ahead and say, I want to receipt these gifts. It's going to give you a name here for the export. You can rename that if you want to call it annual statements 2020 or what have you. And it's also going to show you the receipt date, just like we did before, right? Hey, we're going to put a receipt date on these gifts. Now, in this case, I probably don't want to overwrite the date I already have. That's okay. Just delete that. Don't need it. Then we won't change what's already on the gift. Okay. Then it'll ask you, hey, do you want to generate a receipt for all these that are unreceded? Yes. Hey, there's 5 in here that already were receded. We know that because they have a receipt date. Do you want to do that too? Yes, I do. This is my annual statement. Unless you're in Canada, in which case I don't want to double receipt. That's why we have this little step here to make sure that you catch yourself. And then what am I doing? Well, I'm going to do a PDF. And then here's all my templates. I got one for annual statement. I could preview what that looks like, make sure it's the right one. That's a pretty basic template there. Using that gift table again. And then I hit save. When I hit save, that's actually going to run it. Okay, so save is not saving some settings. Save means do it. So if it's PDFs, It's going to generate that download for me. Right? And the nice thing is we do sort that download. All the PDFs will be in that file in zip code order. I'm usually going to send these in bulk, right? If it's an email receipt, hitting save means the emails are going out. That's the minute they go out into the universe. Now, let's say that Kimberly and Fred here, they're the first ones in the list. They may call you at some point and say, hey, love you guys, love the work that you do. Just a quick note, by the way, we gave you guys a gift back in April. We never got a receipt for that gift. I can't find it. Could you send it again? I can do a couple things. Number one, I see there's no receipt date here. It doesn't say it's receipted, so that's bad on me. I probably didn't send a receipt, but I could also go to the receipts tab to check. Well, no, I didn't receipt them. That's me. Whoops. If a receipt was sent, I'll actually see it listed here. It'll show me what it looks like. I can click on it and see what the receipt actually was. But now I can say, hey, so sorry. I'll send you one right now. Click on these three dots here, and there's that piece of paper. There's that receipting option again. And I could choose to send it by email. Hey, is this still the best email address for you? They might say, no, could you send it by mail? I really need it in paper. My accountant's being picky. Sure, do a PDF. We'll go to your primary address. Pick which template you want. Annual statement. You can preview it again, just like before. And then I can go ahead and run it, and that'll again generate a download for me to print it and put it in the mail. Okay. Now, as far as receipts on demand, I want to make sure we have time for questions. I see a ton of them coming in, and as usual, I talk way too much. But receipts on demand, what that functionality allows you to do is the same thing we've just looked at. Okay, and so to look at this very, very briefly here, let's go into the receipting tool. Sorry, I know. Whoops. We'll zoom again for everybody. There we go. But the one difference is I can come in here and I can create a receipt template, or I can create a receipt on demand. So someone who wants a mail receipt, okay? And if I create a receipt on demand, instead of having a PDF that I have to print and stuff into an envelope, when I run my receipts, that receipt is gonna go into the mail, it's gonna go out the door, it's gonna show up at the donor's house in about 5 days, and I don't have to touch a piece of paper, no paper cuts. None of that stuff. That's the big deal with the receipts on demand. And if I go to create a receipt on demand, I'll come in here. I'm creating a single gift per receipt. That's my only option right now. All right. And let's say this is going to be a webinar sample receipt. Great. I could choose, do I want to include a reply device or not? Totally fine. Let's do that on page 2. All right, and here's a single page template. Here's the reply device template. Here's one, no premium, right? But it does have a reply device. Great, and here's the template. This is already kind of pre-built for me, okay? Some stuff I'm gonna have to obviously replace, including the logo and things like that. I can customize that reply device. When I include a reply device, the paper is perforated right here, so it is a tear off. Okay, but I can modify this, then I can save it, and then I can connect that with a receipting group, same way I do with my other PDF receipts. But again, instead of generating a download for me, it just goes to the donor. Kind of nice. Okay, I know we have a ton of questions coming in. Stephanie, I know you've been chatting with people all through this, which is fantastic. I love knowing that this is helpful and folks have, they need some help with this. That's what we're here for. Well, let's take a look. Stephanie, what are the big questions coming in?
Oh, sorry, I was in the middle of an answer there.
Gotcha.
Excuse me. Okay. Scott, the receipt builder, we do have two different kind of functions of them, of email and mail. Why are they different? Kind of, what's the reasoning there?
Well, because they're generating two completely different types of output. So the one editor is for creating an email and sending an email. And so that's why it's got the same editor that we use for marketing. But when I'm generating the PDF, well, I'm using what is essentially an HTML editor. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but using essentially an HTML editor that's going to be used to render a PDF. And so technically speaking, those are two very different things and very different actions. And so that's why there are two different editors. Now, again, the editor for letters on demand and receipts on demand and mailed receipts, it's actually the same editor, right? And so anytime you're generating basically something that's printable on paper, there's one editor. Anytime you're generating something that is an email, it's a different editor.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's say you have an email receipt template. That gift falls into the receiving group for the email receipt template, but that donor doesn't actually have an email on their contact record.
Well, that would be bad because they're not going to get it. So you will get an exception file that says, hey, here's receipts that couldn't be sent. Okay. But my advice to you to not get to that point is when you are creating the query that you're going to use for email receiving, right? So if I've got this one here for receiving email, now here, this is just, for show, it's based just on tags, but I could also say, oh, this is a gift query, shoot. See, even I do it sometimes. I'd want to merge in, I think I've got a saved contact query for this. Let's see. Can't remember which environment this is. Oh, here we go. We could use this for right now, but I can basically have a contact query that says, hey, do they have an email address? So I would add that as one of the parameters for your email receipt to make sure that if someone is going to be falling into that bucket, they're getting an email receipt, that they've got an email address.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's talk real quick, the email editor. You showed us how we can put an image in as far as like a logo or something like that. Real quick, can you put any video in that receipt?
Yeah, same things you can put into a marketing email, but let's just really quickly. Video embeds in emails are not actually videos embedded in an email, right? We all know that, because how that gets treated by the email provider when someone gets that email, it's going to be completely all over the map, right? Are they using Gmail? Are they using Outlook? Are they using the mail app on their phone? What have you? So that video could be completely stripped out. And so when you use that video content block, right? And when we created our template today, right? I don't remember what it was. I know it contains webinar. Hey, look at that, today's webinar email template. Cool, click on it, we can go right back into it. Be kind of neat. But one of the content blocks that you have available is video. Okay, but that video content block, this bad boy right here, what that actually does is actually really smart, right? So maybe instead of this thing, I don't want the thank you. I have a nice video of our team saying thank you and people showing the difference that your donation has made. I click here, I'm going to add a video URL. And what happens is this actually creates essentially an image with a little play button on it that shows you the thumbnail from that video that's on YouTube or Vimeo. And it will link to YouTube or to Vimeo to play that video, right? And so for the donor's experience, they just see a thing with looks like a video and a play button, and they click on it, and then a video starts playing, but it's opened in a new window or in a new tab to play that video. But all that to say, absolutely. If you're creating an email receipt, put in a video. Those are actually really powerful for being able to say thank you.
Awesome. Okay, two more real quick, and then I think I covered the rest of them. Letters on demand or receipts on demand. Talk about envelopes. We had a question if they include a number 9 envelope.
So receipts on demand, just like letters on demand, will include a window envelope. Okay, and so there's some very specific spacing that we need for that receipt template to make sure that the address shows correctly. And look at that, we're still in the editor, sweet. When I actually go through here and say, hey, I've built what I want, let me save it and go ahead and review it, it's going to give me a preview of what this will actually look like when it is printed. And you're going to see some barcode on here and everything that gets used for handling. You're also going to see the address block is in a very specific spot here because it needs to show in the window for the window envelope. Okay, but it does include that envelope. It's just always going to be a window envelope.
Awesome. Okay, I have one more real quick. How do you filter out donations that have not been receded?
Filter out donations that have not been receded. Well, remember, in any scenario, right, in Virtuous, the only way that Virtuous knows if a receipt was sent is if it has a receipt date, okay? So if that gift has a receipt date set on it, then it was receded. Okay, now for my receding groups, yeah, let's leave, I don't need a video in here. For my receding, when I go to queue my receding, again, any gift that has a receipt date already set on it, it will not be included. So if I've got a gift I created just now and I put a receipt date on it, it won't get pulled in when I queue receding, because as far as Virtuous knows, hey, that already has a receipt that was sent. If I'm doing a gift query and I want to know which gifts have been receded, give me all the gifts where the receipt date is set. I want to know all the gifts that have not been receded, like you said, give me all the gifts where the receipt date is not set. That's everything that doesn't have a receipt. Okay, and
right,
I just saw a clarification on the envelope. If you include a reply device with your letters on demand, it does include a reply envelope. Got that one in under the wire. Whew.
And I was just going to say, I'm answering one more in the chat. And then just as far as kind of the structure for receiving on demand, if you actually reach out to our support team, we can put you in touch with some folks who can just kind of talk through some specifics of exactly how that kind of cost structure works. So go ahead and on the little bottom right of your Virtuous, reach out to the support team and we can touch base there.
Well, and you can even, right here from the receding screen, you guys will see a little flag on here talking about receiving on demand because it is new. And there's a little link there, and that'll actually just pop open the messenger. For me, it pops a new tab open, which is neat. And you can reach out and you can ask about, your contract, and you can ask about receipts on demand. And your account manager will be able to see that, and they'll be able to get back to you from there. All right, I know we're at time. It's so funny. I'll just share with you guys, Stephanie and I have talked about the fact that with changing to this insider format, as opposed to trying to fit in new release features and other updates and other stuff into this webinar, it's given us more time to go deeper on these features, right? And so now we have almost an entire hour just to talk about receding, and we're still trying to get it in under the wire. It's so funny. We could do this, we could expand these probably for sure. If you have other questions, follow-up questions from today's content, and you're still not sure, you can always reach out to our support team. That's the best way to get those questions answered, even if you just say, hey, I was in the webinar day on receding and I realized I'm not sure about something. You can reach out that way and we'll be able to help you. So getting back to our fun, whoops, we already did questions. We don't need to do that again. But as always, I do want to encourage you guys, if you haven't been doing some of the weekly sessions, please do join us. Next week, we will be chatting about some key fundraising strategies. We like to pull things out from our recent responsive weekly chats and other things and look at how you can actually accomplish some of these things in Virtuous, right? Strategy is really nice. I love all that stuff at like AFP conferences, but I'm really big on, hey, that's a great idea, but how do I actually do it? What does that mean if I'm in Virtuous? Okay. And as always, I do like to leave you guys with a quote from someone smarter than I am. And I realized today I tend to like authors, I guess. But to me, I wanted to bring this up because we've been talking about receding and tax receding. And so often we get caught up in deductibility and IRS regulations. And really, at the end of the day, the thing that's most important to our donor is that we're saying thank you, right? They want that for their taxes. They want to talk to their tax prep guy and make sure they get the right deduction. But really more important in that moment is to just let them know that we are grateful for their support and for their partnership, and grateful to have them supporting our mission. Right? And I love it. Thank you is the best prayer that anyone could say. I say that one a lot. Thank you expresses extreme gratitude, humility, understanding. All right. Thank you, everybody. And hopefully we will talk to all of you again next week. Bye.